Hey, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. I am in Paris, France, and I came over here as the very beginning step of about a 7 to 8 week journey to all kinds of places. Morocco, we're going to be going to Portugal, we're going to be going to Mexico. And so all of this is around creativity and teaching art retreats, and as well as doing a lot of kind of thinking and exploring and getting inspired by all kinds of new places, right? So this is the first stop. And what brought me over here was the opportunity to teach a lot of business people a process for getting out of their heads into their hearts. And I just spent the last day or so up in a chateau just north of Paris, working and presenting a process. And what's so interesting about this is that it is, to be teaching an art process to people who are really not artists, and something I've been working on a long time, and it's based on my teaching that came out of all the artists that I've worked with all over the years, and just thinking about this process for myself as well. And what I've realized is that this is one of the biggest challenges that people face. Is that they get stuck in all the limiting beliefs they have around what's possible for them when they start visioning what kind of work they want to do or where they want to go with their creativity, wondering if they're talented enough, all those reasons, or the materials, learning how to draw, all these things that kind of get in the way of this desire to be creative, to self-express. So what happens for a lot of people is they opt out. And it's really a shame, because really what people need is to understand how to access their creativity. And so that's the subject of the podcast today. And I'm going to be sharing with you an art practice, a process that I call Bloom. And it's called Bloom because it's the perennial practice of becoming yourself. It's you blooming, you becoming more and more yourself and moving towards what you love and what you desire. So this is the underpinnings of finding our way creatively, regardless of the kind of work you want to make or what the outcome is. If you want to build something, create something, express something, move towards a desire, this is a framework. And I've kept it really simple. And I developed this really to help non-artists, to help anybody understand creativity and how to access it for themselves, how to go deeper with it. So there's 5 steps, and I just thought I would go over this with you because regardless of whether you've been making art a long time or have never made art or anything, I think there's information here or possibly reminders for your own practice that will be helpful. So 5 steps, and I'll just take them one by one, but here they are in sequence. Number 1 is feel. Number 2 is open. Number 3 is play. Number 4 is create. And number 5 is curate. So I'm going to go through these now and share with you the thinking behind the steps and then how it moves to the next step. So the first step is called feel. This really is being the first step, and having the word feel is really a hallmark of all my coaching. Everything we do at Art2Life is kind of based on this idea that we're putting the emotions, the feeling first, to prioritize that over trying to create anything. That we have to connect with the feeling of what we're after, because this is more abstract. This is more open-ended, and it allows for an easier associations. It provides more freedom. So let me explain. If we are in our heads, if when we're living and walking around the planet and doing everything we think, we're thinking constantly. And if we want to get somewhere, get to an outcome, create something, the thinking part of our brain is not necessarily the most useful. And it short changes what we're able to create, because you can't think your way to the answer. It just won't be as powerful if you're not leveraging your emotions, the heart, your soul. All of these need to come into it. So this first step can be derived from a question, a simple prompt. What do you feel? What's the desired feeling you want to experience? Do you want to feel more alive? What makes you feel more alive? This was the prompt that I gave these 150 people at this business retreat. And in doing so, it makes them think of things, which is great, but it also abstracts it. So we drop into the feeling of what we want. Maybe you want your art to feel more bold, or maybe you want anything at all, anything you desire. If you can connect to the feeling of it, or how you would feel imagining yourself in it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be in it. It doesn't have to exist yet. You just have to connect to the feeling. So that right there, the fact is, when you imagine a situation, scenario, and art, and you drop into the feeling of it from the, it's not real yet, that your brain doesn't know the difference. It actually it feels as if you've already done it. And all the emotions that come with it, it's full, it's complete. It's as if it's happening to you right now. This is the power of the mind, right? And so we drop into those feelings. So if we want to make something that feels playful, for example, or feels really vibrant, right? We want to drop into that feeling. That's the first step in this process. And we have to turn off our thinking, and we just have to feel, literally drop into that. And the second step in this is open. And it's here where we need to just really open to this feeling and let the energy of that feeling, just really feel it, and let the energy of that feeling fill you so you can taste it. So you're really embodying it. You have this feeling. It's as if it's happening. And of course, all this can be done just sitting there. There's nothing that needs to be done. It's just how you're thinking. And we need some time to go from the analytical, busy brain and drop down. And literally, you're dropping down. You're dropping down into your body, into your heart. You can't be thinking a strategy for an outcome, or imagining a finished piece of art, or any of that, or worrying about whether it's good enough, if you are truly feeling. So it brings you into the present, which is exactly where you need to be to create. The past has baggage associated with it. We can't really go in the past and be there to do this exercise. We can't get there by being in the future and worrying about it and imagining what the problems are, all of that. It's really around how we're feeling, and how we're feeling in the present, right here, right now. and it's based on what we're thinking about, and it changes how we are, how we're feeling. So then, when we get to this state, which doesn't take very long at all, we can start playing. We can literally, which is the third step, let our curiosity and sort of following the delight of what we're involved in. And you just literally start experimenting, playing, bringing colors in, bringing different kinds of mark making tools. It doesn't matter the kind of art you're making, but it's giving yourself some time to hold the feeling you're after and then try things on while holding that feeling. What else feels like that feeling? So we're matching the feeling and trying things that would also relate. And because it's an experiment, because it's playing, it doesn't really matter whether or not whether it's perfect or not. There's no rules in playing. There's no plans for playing. You're just playing. So what's happening is you have this emotion, you have this feeling, and now you're putting imagery to it. You're putting marks to it. You're putting colors to it. Whatever you're doing, you're correcting things. You're just dropping things in. Now what starts to happen is you're working with that emotion. And you're seeing it. You're seeing something emerge as a result of that emotion. So now you have something in front of you to look at, as well as the feeling of it, the feeling of that emotion, the feeling, what are you feeling? And then you can hold that and then also look at the work which has been built and made based on that feeling. But it's going to be kind of different looking, obviously. But having this other thing now, whether you've just started, it's got a few marks on it, it will give you objectivity. You'll be able to go deeper into the feeling because you have a visualization of something. It doesn't, it's going to give you information. It doesn't have to be literal. So we start bringing things together. And creativity is often bringing disparate things together, things that aren't necessarily would normally go together. And this is what's so beautiful about playing. It's what you're doing. You just put this with this, try that on, these different colors. But if you, in the back of your mind, you have the idea that you want this to be your word or your feeling, is you want it to be really vibrant, really, really alive. You're holding that feeling. So when you make a mark or try something, if it's you're sort of including things or not, right? Or trying things, and you'll notice what's working. And because you have this visualization of the feeling, it gives you more information, and there's a growth here. There's a development of this concept, of this idea. You're improving it as you go. So then once we get some material down to look at, it doesn't take a lot, we move into the create phase. And the create phase is really about getting in motion, right? You've got this work, you've got things that feel like this, you've brought things together, but you're starting to pay attention now to what's happening on the picture more. Where is it working? What do you love? What's working and what's not? And you start editing. You start choosing and focusing on parts that are working that you like or that you notice, and working less on or covering up the parts that aren't working. It's in this phase where lion's share of the work will be done, in the creation phase. You might work multiple times in this area. This is the sort of step where I talk a lot about differences. Putting things together that are different creates an interest, creates a vibrancy. Putting something small next to something large, out of control, in control. These are opposites. Dull color, saturated color. These are opposites. And they allow us to amplify. So now amplify the feeling that is emerging on the picture. What's in, what feels like this, you've kept, and what doesn't feel like this, or what you don't like or feel like it doesn't relate, you cross out, you put something else, you make something bigger, you reduce the size of it, you cover something up. So this is the phase where we're really editing, we're amplifying the core feeling we want the work to have. And then we're downplaying the areas that are confusing and don't really relate. And this can go on for a long time. This can be 5 hours or 2 hours or 10 days. Coming and going to this it's like it's bookmark. You can leave the work, and because you've done this work where you've built it up and you have something going, you don't need to worry. When you come back, you can drop right in to where you were before and continue. Your brain will pick it right up, which is kind of wonderful. And usually when you come back after an absence, you can see things more clearly. Like it's recommended to take breaks just for this reason, just because you're going to see it better when you return. So what we've created here is a teacher. This piece of art that's in front of you, that's being developed, is giving you more information about you, about your feeling. A lot of information about it. And it might not even be understandable, but intuitively you're learning. And it creates a kind of momentum of this direction that it starts getting deeper. And I know a lot of people have trouble finishing, but this is part of how you finish, right? Because it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. You're seeing more in the work because you began with a feeling and you've been staying on that. And now it's just getting stronger and you're leaving things out and adding things in. And we're just gleaning from, we're just setting it up. And the emotion and the awareness of the feeling is getting stronger. We have more to work with. It's literally teaching us about ourselves, which is such a great idea. It's so cool that our art actually is the process for becoming more the best version of ourselves. It's advancing. We might have started with wanting to feel a certain way, but as we work on these, it can shift and it can change. And there's all kinds of things that are going to occur that wouldn't have occurred if you had just been, if you just came up with the idea and tried to make art. It's just so many benefits to just getting in motion. And by the way, this practice is a practice. It is a short practice, and it will allow you to stay in this groove of experimentation. So at this phase, in this create phase, the fourth sort of phase of this practice, and this can be short or long. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 4 days. It doesn't really matter. You are now making from a place of presence and a place of that is based on an emotion, based more on feeling than thinking. And because it's your thoughts and your feelings that you've put forward, your decisions are based more on you rather than more externalities or things that would distract you. And so the work comes out feeling more authentic, and it's stronger. What's interesting about this and getting to this phase is that it's doable for people who haven't made art before, but it's because it is accessible, because there's no longer there's no fear here. There's no uncertainty. The bugaboo of what is this art going to turn out like, it goes away. All that we have to do is follow this, and this becomes a gateway in. So, of course, that we have to use our thinking and we get better at this, right? Like, how do we finish something? That's learned, but finishing relates to this as well, because when the thing is matching the feeling and it feels right, and you could get better at this and more and more sensitive, which, by the way, that's what this process is teaching you. This practice is literally a practice of mindfulness, of you being you and you being the future you. And it also makes art at the same time. So when you think about that, it's why the art gets better. So there's a powerful idea that we don't need to understand where we're going to end up. All we need to do is begin and be in feeling. So the fifth phase of this is the reflection part, and kind of the curation of this outcome, how it fits in with everything. What did you learn here? What is this? How close is this to what you felt? How is it different? How can the next one? How can this be a stepping stone to the next one? Because a practice isn't about a singular experience. A practice is a sequence, but it's multiple visitations, like a yoga practice. You show up, you come to this mat, and then the next time you show up and come to the mat, you're different, and then you're different again. So it allows this practice, if you just can hold these 5 steps of feeling, staying open, playing for a period of time, creating. This is now you've set the stage to create. And then the curation of the outcome, of the way you feel, what you've learned, to hold that, to notate that. Because then you can begin again. And you will go deeper. The work will just naturally get better. What was so interesting working with these business folks was that most of them had never made art before. I walked them through this process, which was so cool, because for them, there wasn't the fear of the blank page at all. That didn't happen. And this is amazing for people who don't make art, because that's very scary, even for those of us that do make art. Is this going to work? What do I do? I've never done this before. All of that goes away. And this is so important to remember, because if you're not afraid, if you feel inspired, if you feel free, then you're free, and then your work will feel like you. One of the things that I think a lot about, certainly when I'm presenting, I just did this whole presentation, and I've got to get up there and speak in front of a bunch of people, and you have to kind of loosely hold the ideas, but not be white knuckling it, trying to be perfect, or you have to just be feel free to say things in the way you would normally say, so it feels natural and authentic, and it lands better, right? Like and that's kind of hard to do. It's like, well, I want to use the right words, and what if I can't say it properly? And we tend to want to get a script and notes and read to people, which doesn't really work very well. So we have to feel comfortable. And this is in public speaking. If you're comfortable, then it's going to work out because you're just being you, and everyone can like relax and just listen. And we all are able to communicate, but it lands better if you're being yourself almost always, especially in art. So this practice sets you up for being yourself, because everything is derived from yourself, and that's where the seat of the creativity, that's the beginning of it, and that's where it's keeping you in that. So the work can become more authentic more quickly. So when working with these folks who had never made art before, they felt comfortable, which was amazing to me. They're laughing and doing stuff, but what I invited them to do, because they had 2 shots at this, they did it once through, and then I invited them to now go on the second board, which is kind of cool to have several working, right? For many of you who've taken our programs, we talk about working on a sequence, but always having another opportunity. It's almost like we warm up, but instead of doing it like to put one aside. But what we want to have happen, whether we do a second one or work on a second one simultaneously or take the first one to a new phase, is we want it to go deeper. We want to get more bold with translating the feeling to not feel that we're holding back at all. We want to really express what it is that we're feeling. I mean, really, and be risky with that. I mean, try things you haven't done before. If you're free and you're not worried about making a mistake, and you have something to guide you, provides the security you need for that. You have a direction, a North Star, something to check against. When I do a lot of online presenting, I'm not able to do it really at all unless I can see the chat, the comments. I need to be able to feel the people on the other end. It doesn't matter what they're saying. I just need to see it. If I can't see it, I just feel like I'm talking to a wall, and I don't know. I have to feel it. There has to be a call and response. And even if it's just feeling that and seeing that they're there and seeing that they're saying things, that just makes such a powerful difference. But what was amazing is when these business people made the second piece of art, almost across the board, the second one they made was infinitely better. It was more interesting. It was deeper looking. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I don't even think they saw that. I mean, they're not used to looking at what they make. I mean, some people were just utterly blown away that they made anything. They'd never done this before. But I know from looking at art for my whole life, I know the difference between something that's a bit more self-conscious and one where you feel more of the person. That's what this process, this practice brings out. So I saw tremendous learning just in just 2 passes, in just the first thing a person ever made and the second thing a piece of art a person has ever made. Already they're progressing, not to mention doing 200 more. So, and the curation part of this, like, what did you learn? What happened to you? How do you feel now than compared to when, you need to kind of take notes with this, because it's the learning that's going to advance you. It's the result. Yes, you get something at the end of this practice, but you get the learning, and that's where you want to assimilate that. You want to put that in your vocabulary. You want to start thinking about that. So when you come back again in another attempt or another session, that you're already further along and that the work is going to go deeper. I mean, just the fact that you've done it before, and like when I make art now, it's just so familiar, and I'm following this practice, and everything changes all the time, where I am, what I'm doing, what I want to create. But there's this grounded quality because I have a practice that I'm following. So this is a code. These are codes. This is a practice. This is a guide for deepening and connecting to yourself. It's a guide to become more like you using a creativity practice. Now, you can do this in 10 minutes, or you can do this in 5 minutes, a daily practice, and it works beautifully. It's amazing. And this is also where this has come from me. It's like, I don't have a lot of time. How do I get the results? How can I get something substantial here? So that's where this has also been derived, is like, okay, I need to get to this place. How do I get to this place? Oh, I remember now. I have to feel something. I got to just stop. I don't have a lot of time, but I need to just feel. What do I want to feel? What is the desired feeling I want to have? How do I feel right now? What do I want to express? What is it? I mean, just that question is powerful. It eliminates so much chatter, and it brings you into the present. And opening to that, going deeper, which takes time. This is a practice. And the ability to play. When I was working with everyone at the end, some people were saying that they haven't played in years. Like we all used to, when I say play, and it's like, think of kids on the playground, everyone can remember. But we don't do that enough. And that's the experimentation. That's what keeps this lighthearted and keeps us coming back for more. You want to have this in your practice so you always feel lit up. You always feel that there's possibility, that there's surprise, that it's not all you orchestrating things. There's serendipity comes into this. Chance things. You throw some paper down, you put some colors down you wouldn't normally work with, and whoa, there's a combination there that's perfect. Or whatever it is, that there's a chance for something to happen. It's a little like gambling, right? We could, you buy a lottery ticket and it's possible, highly remote, that you're going to win, but there's a chance. And that chance keeps it exciting. So we want to have this as a practice. We want to have this build this in to keep us going, to keep this a daily, a weekly part of our discipline in becoming who we're here to become. Because again, we're making something, but we're really making ourselves. Our art is teaching us who we're becoming. In order to make the art that we dream of, anything that we desire, we have to become. There's a new identity that needs to be developed. That's what is so powerful. That's what we're making. You think you're just making art, but you're actually making the new version of yourself, the future version of yourself that could make this kind of work. The boldness required, the sensitivity that's required, the audaciousness, whatever it is that you're after, it's not possible. You're wanting to make it. Your soul's wanting to make it. Make that, because that's where you need to grow and become in your life. Your soul already knows where you need to go to learn to become the best version of yourself, to reach your potential, to go beyond your potential, to just move further towards that. And that's why it's so satisfying. And on the flip side, it's so frustrating for so many when they're not able to be in a process, when they're not making any art because they get stuck. They're telling themselves a story. Well, I don't have time, or I'm not good enough, or all these things that hold us back. And you think if that would stop that desire, but it doesn't. And that's where the itch comes from. That's where the frustration comes from. People want to do this. And what this practice gives you is a very, very simple way of staying in the game. Perfect for working in a sketchbook, right? Perfect for small things, experiments, a practice that reminds you that you're creative, that brings you into the heart and brings you into the present, which the present is where all the potential is. It's where all possibility is. There is no other way to get to where you need to go. It won't come from imagining it. You can't strategize and have it happen. And it certainly doesn't come from looking back. That just is even worse. You have to be in it. You have to be doing the dance for the magic to happen. And that's what this practice will remind you of. Your art practice reminds you of how easy this is and how wonderful it is to be in the present and to be moving towards it. Forget about even getting there, just the joy of feeling that you're accomplishing this, that you're becoming. It's profound, and it's what you're